Hello and welcome to a new episode of Race Recap, where we provide you with all the key insights and crucial information from each weekend's feeder series action. My name's Thomas Groves, and this week on Race Recap we're reviewing F2's first ever trip to Canada and the return of F1 Academy. The second round of the season heralded 3 races full of action over the weekend, and of course we just had to bring back Calla-Kra Caskey to help delve into the details. How are you, Calla?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, great, thanks. Now, before we get into F1 Academy, I wanted to start with F2, which of course staged its third weekend of the year here. And to get us started, here's Feeder Series F2 editor August Bamford to tell us more.
Formula 2 has come and gone from Circuit Show Villeneuve in Montreal for round 3 of the 2026 championship. It was a weekend of firsts as Laurens van Hoopen claimed his maiden pole position, Noah Leon secured his first ever F2 victory for Campos, and Martinius Stenshorn earned his own breakthrough win by leading home a Rodin Motorsport 1-2 in the feature race. Rodin had found themselves in this position once before, running first and second in the opening round at Melbourne, but this time nothing slipped away. The result served as a long overdue reward for a team that had shown clear pace early in the season, somewhat rectifying difficult opening weekends where both drivers failed to finish back-to-back feature races. Gabriele Mini now leads the driver standings with a sizable 21-point advantage after collecting podium finishes in both the sprint and feature races this weekend. That gap has grown largely due to misfortune for his nearest title rivals. Invicta's Rafael Camara and Campos' Nikola Tsolov both failed to score points in Sunday's feature race after separate spins and eventually leading to time penalties, capping off their disappointing Sunday afternoons in Montreal. Following his maiden victory, Martinius Stenshorn now sits level with Tsolov on 35 points, while Noah Leon and Van Hoopen complete the top 5 on 33 points. Mini's advantage has also helped MP Motorsport move into the lead of the team's championship with 69 points, just a single point ahead of Campos. While Campos have benefited from a relatively even contribution between Tsolov and Leon, Mini accounts for roughly 83% of MP's total points this season, compared to teammate Oliver Gother. Rodin Motorsport now sits third in the standings on 65 points, following their outstanding result on Sunday, and suddenly look poised to become genuine contenders moving forwards. There is little time to catch a breath, as attention now shifts to Monaco, where round 4 of the F2 season arrives in just 1 week's time. Be sure to check out this feeder series website for reports on every session and more in-depth weekend analysis.
Great stuff from August there. Now, F2 held its first weekend at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, meaning most of, if not all of our 2026 grid will be hitting the circuit for the first time. Do we think we saw, evidence of that this weekend, Calla?
I think we're seeing some evidence of that. I think we're also seeing a bit of evidence of the very spread out schedule, which is probably harder on F2 drivers than it is on F1 drivers. You know, F2 is a series where it can be really helpful to get into a rhythm, and F2 has always had kind of these 3 championships, the first short leg, then the big European leg, and then the final Middle Eastern leg. And with that being even more broken up than usual this year, I don't think anybody's really had time to get into a rhythm and get a true championship challenge started. So I think we're seeing some of that. Plus there was the rain. So obviously a bit of chaos, and I think that did show up on track a little bit with some of our title contenders stalling.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to come on to that because, of course, we have a new champion to read it, and it's by some margin for the first time this season. Gabriele Mini, the only man to score points in every single F2 race this season. When you compare his weekend to the likes of Solo and Camera, who we perhaps would have thought of being, they were all kind of right up there as the top 3 after Miami. When you look at their respective weekends, I think it's really given a bit of a paradigm shift towards Mini in terms of the championship, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first thing being that he leads by 21 points. So I think he will want to remember how good he was around Montreal, where he has next to no experience, heading to Monaco, where he has a ton of experience up through, F2 and F3. So I think he'll be able to use that, and he could be one of the guys who's really getting into a rhythm so far.
Absolutely. Just one more quick mention. We had a bit of history this weekend. When you look at who had good weekends, of course, we mentioned not the best weekend for Camera and Solov, but Rodin scored 1-2 in the feature race, with Noah Leon becoming the first Mexican winner in F2 since Esteban Gutierrez. I mean, for those guys, a great weekend for Noah Leon specifically, a brilliant weekend for his first ever F2 race win.
Yeah, absolutely. And he, made the switch to Campos Racing this year. So he's Solov's teammate. And I think, when we're talking about Solov being in the title fight, the championship fight, he definitely seems so far to be the leading driver on that team. But I think Noah Leon with the reverse grid race showed that he can be in the fight for wins. He also took a reverse grid podium in Melbourne in the first weekend of the year. So I think, he can keep it, if he can keep it close to Solov throughout the season for Campos, then he could be seeing a title charge as well. And then you mentioned the Roden duo. I think, there's always, they had Stenshorn first, Dunn second. Dunn had a bit of an incident in the sprint race on Saturday, and I think that's been a lot of the conversation about him, is that he's super fast when he can keep it clean, and I think he showed both of those sides this weekend. Him and Stenshorn are both former members of the McLaren junior team, so they're both really, talented drivers, and I think, and with Roden's strength that they've shown throughout last season and then showing up in this season in the Montreal weekend as well, they could also be in the picture. I mean, really, it's anyone's game at the moment.
But moving on to F1 Academy, of course, they had not one, not two, but 3 races over the weekend. We do have a new championship leader, Alisha Palmowski, who honestly really impressed me, winning in both wet and dry conditions. I mean, seems to me like that was her best weekend to date in the series.
I will go one further than that and say I don't think it was just her best weekend to date in the series. I think it was possibly the best driver weekend to date in the series.
Really?
And there's been some really impressive other candidates. The one that comes to mind is Abby Pulling in Miami in 2024, where she took both pole positions and both victories. So not only, we had this three race format where there was the first and second qualifying times mattering again, they did in the 2024 season. And Palmowski took both the first and second fastest times, not just comparing first times to first times and second times to second times. Both of her times were quick enough for pole position. And she went, and in the first race, she set the biggest winning margin in F1 Academy history of over 10 seconds. And then in the third race, in the rain, she improved on that and set the new record for the largest victory margin in the rain. So she was really just truly super impressive across the weekend. And she's taken all of the pole positions available, 2 out of 5 race victories, and both of them being from a straight set grid. I wouldn't want to be competing against her right now, and it is kind of hard to imagine. I mean, still a couple rounds ahead, but it's hard to imagine her not winning this.
That's the thing, isn't it? I think the thing is, this season we had the huge losses of Maya Oig and Dorian Pan, and we needed a successor. And Alisha Palmowski and Emma Feldbermeyer, for me, are stepping up to that plate. It's been so great to see them kind of come up and do the things that they have been doing in the opening weekend. The one person I would perhaps like to see a little bit more from at the moment is Alva Larson, the Ferrari officially back driver in this series. I think so far she's had it a little bit tough, but the pace has definitely been there. And I think, was it the third race, the second race, sorry, but she got a podium on the road and then obviously had it taken away from that penalty. I think it was Rafael Ferreira as well, who also won a race but then had it taken away for the penalty. So a couple of really great showings from those guys. Now, a little bit more, because there were a couple of other drivers I thought you can't not mention, given the weekends they've had. Megan Bruce, Mathilda Paatz. Those guys really showed up this weekend, didn't they?
Yeah, they were both really strong. I mean, I think Bruce got qualified second in one of the races and third in the other. I can't remember which is which, but she was at the front of the pack, and she took her first 2 F1 Academy podiums in those 2 races. So, I mean, very great for Campos. They had a 1-2 and a 1-3. And then the other driver you mentioned being Mathilda Paatz. She also took multiple podiums this weekend in her first full F1 Academy season, and her first 2 podiums. first being the third place from the opening race, and the second being the reverse grid race where she was second on track and inherited the win. And she was really strong in both races. I don't think that win was unearned by any margin, even if we did have Ferreira originally take it on track and then was penalized, because, you know, Paatz was really strong. And I think that's kind of something I wanted to see from her coming into this series. And she had some car issues in China, so she couldn't show that. But it's nice when she's unfettered by those, seeing her full potential. She did start with her F1 Academy wildcard appearance, was in Canada last year, and she showed pace. She retired in 2 of the 3 races, which was really unfortunate for her. But she showed pace, so it's kind of a full circle moment to see her coming back with just a little more F1 Academy experience under her belt, and go from having these crashes that took her out of her races last year to taking a victory and a podium here. And if we're mentioning drivers I feel like deserve a shout out, I wanted to give one to Kaylee Countryman. If I'm not mistaken, she's the youngest driver to ever have participated in this series, and in only her second weekend in the series, she takes a podium. And, you know, people can say, oh, it's in the reverse grid race, but she kept it really clean there. She qualified 8th, so she got that, you know, that was a strong qualifying position for her. She qualified 8th and then 9th in the second qualifying session, or 9th in the straight grid qualifying session. Unfortunately, the wet race, I think she struggled with. I presume she has little to no experience driving in the wet, but you know, it was a strong weekend for her, and I was kind of surprised by that. I didn't expect her to see her on the podium so soon, but I hope that keeps coming. You know, also going to mention Granada. She put together another quietly quite strong weekend, and she is the driver with the least single-seater experience. She hadn't driven any sort of single-seater before F1 Academy, so this is her second weekend of driving in single-seaters, and you know, she took 4th in the reverse grid race and an 8th in the feature race. So there's a lot of young drivers and first-year drivers doing well in this series as well, and it'll be exciting to see them grow throughout the season. If they're already challenging for podiums, you know, maybe we could get a win coming soon, like Paatz already did, and I think for that to happen with some of the other younger drivers as well would be really exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, first time F1 Academy, well, not the first time, sorry, second time F1 Academy has raced in Canada. First time in a while we had 3 races on a weekend, and that third race, of course, was the wet race for Palmowski, where we saw that win. I think it's quite interesting to see. First time this year we've seen F1 Academy race in the wet, but I think they all handled it really well, didn't they?
I believe they were the only series that didn't see a red flag this weekend. So points to them for keeping it comparatively cool.
Yeah, I mean, and we've got a couple of European rounds coming up, Silverstone and Zandvoort. The confidence must be high, especially considering Silverstone's next up, only a few weeks away. That is, of course, her home weekend, and she'll be wanting to. I mean, if she can repeat what she's done here, she's, you know, in with a real shout at the championship, isn't she?
Yeah, if she had this type of weekend in Silverstone, all of the others might have to go home, and it might not be worth it to complete this season. I mean, I'm exaggerating there, but it was so strong from her that it's already feeling like, oh, it's crunch time for the rest of them. I hope that, you know, we'll see Felbermeyer continue to be strong in Silverstone, and I would love to see for Ella Lloyd, for example, to have a good qualifying, which would set her up for more success than she's been able to find so far. You know, maybe Alba Larson can get her podium back that she lost. It would be nice to see real challengers for Palmowski show up in Silverstone. We'll see what happens. I don't know. I don't think anybody else will be taking the lead from her there, but we'll see if they can take a win. She looks just I'm getting ahead of myself just because of how fantastic of a weekend this was for her. I'm sure she'll face some challenges through the rest of the season, but it was really impressive.
Oh yeah, I mean, this weekend is exactly what you want when you're at this level. I mean, just to illustrate the point standings for you guys at home, Palmowski 78 points, 25 ahead of Felbermeyer, and that's after taking the lead of the championship during the weekend. So top-notch weekend for her. Feldmeier did incredibly well to kind of fight back and actually improved on her position in every race as well. And then you've got Megan Bruce down in third, 37 points, 1 point ahead of Payson Westcott, who is 1 point ahead of Mathilda Paatz. Actually top 5 of the standings heading into Silverstone. Of course, we'll be updating you when we get there. But before we go, though, because, I mean, what a conversation that was about F1 Academy, by the way. Absolutely loved it. But before we go, though, Birth, of course, has been more than just F1 Academy and F2, as much as we can focus on that. There's been more racing going on around the world. A quick rundown, then, of the other major feeder series happening this weekend, starting with Formula Regional Europe, where Sebastian Weldon took the lead of the championship from Rashid Al-Heri after back-to-back wins at Zandvoort. 12 points he stands now ahead of Renault Franco, with Al-Heri dropping to third after previously leading the championship. There was more Formula Regional action as well, as over in the Japanese series, Yuzuki Miura continued his 100% podium record at Suzuka. He now holds an 11-point lead over Ryota Hirachi, who's its second up, defending his second win of the season, with Masana Muto having his best weekend so far, promoting him to third in the standings. And they, of course, shared the track this weekend with Super Formula Lights, where Kiyoshi Umegaki won all 3 races and sits atop the standings with a 12-point cushion ahead of Frenchman Evan Gilter, who had just 1 podium in the first race of the weekend. Still holds second place, though, ahead of Honda Junior Yusuke. Now, we have no feeder focus this week. Instead, we're bringing you something better. An exclusive interview with F2 star Alex Stern releasing on Friday. All I'm going to say is do not miss it. Just make sure you're there, because it's going to be a brilliant episode. But for now, that's all from us here on Race Recap. Before we go, a reminder, you can follow us on our website, thefeederseries.net, and our extensive social platform. And a huge thank you to Calla for joining us today and stealing the show, even if I do say so myself, and to August for his insight too. But for now, my name is Thomas Groves, and you've been listening to Race Recap, brought to you by Feeder Series. Take care and goodbye.